The Great Hall of Valantis Prime stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Floating platforms held delegates from over 200 species, each one representing worlds that humanity had only dreamed about a century ago. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves, and the air hummed with translation devices working in thousands of languages. Daniel Shaw stood at the center podium, his gray hair neatly combed and his Earth Federation uniform pressed to perfection. At 62 years old, he had spent 30 of those years serving humanity among the stars. He had seen wonders. He had brokered peace between species that had warred for millennia. He had buried friends on distant worlds and celebrated victories that saved billions of lives. Today should have been simple. Today was the Treaty Renewal Summit, a ceremony that happened every 10 years. Earth would renew its 14 major treaties with the Galactic Compact, and life would continue as it had for 4 decades. Behind him, Lavra Mitchell watched from the Earth delegation's platform. She was young, barely 30, but her mind was sharp enough to have earned her place as Shaw's senior aide. She held a tablet containing every treaty, every amendment, every promise humanity had made and kept over 40 years of membership. Shaw cleared his throat and began to speak. "Honored delegates," he said, his voice calm and steady. 40 years ago, humanity took its first steps into the galactic community. We came not as conquerors, but as partners. We came to learn, to share, and to build something greater than ourselves. He paused, looking around the vast chamber. Thousands of alien eyes watched him. Some were friendly. Most were not. In these 40 years, Earth has contributed much to our shared prosperity. Our engineers have helped build stations across the frontier. Our doctors have served in hospitals on 300 worlds. Our soldiers have stood beside yours in defense of peace. Our farmers have helped feed colonies that face starvation. Lavra noticed movement on the upper platforms. The Hegemony Council members were whispering among themselves. High Arbiter Zorvan, their leader, stood nearly 8 feet tall with a body like a mantis wrapped in ceremonial robes. His compound eyes reflected the starlight from above. Shaw continued. Today, Earth proudly renews its commitment to all 14 treaties that bind us together. We renew the Trade Compact, the Mutual Defense Agreement, the Scientific Exchange Protocol, and the Refugee Assistance. Enough. The single word echoed through the hall. Every translation device carried it in every language. Shaw stopped mid-sentence. Zorvan stepped forward on his platform, his long arms folded behind his back. Must we sit through this performance every decade? Must we pretend that the contributions of humans are somehow equal to those of true galactic powers? Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not from everyone, but from enough. Shaw remained still. High Arbiter, I was not finished with my... You were finished when I decided you were finished, Zorvan said. His voice was cold, like ice scraping against metal. Let us speak plainly, Ambassador Shaw. Humanity is tolerated. That is all. You are useful workers. You breed quickly and die quickly, which makes you cheap labor. Your species has existed for the blink of an eye compared to civilizations that have ruled the stars for millions of years. More laughter now, louder. Laura's hands tightened on her tablet. She looked at Shaw, waiting for him to respond, to fight back. But he simply stood there, his face unreadable. A delegate from the Varathi Collective spoke next. The human is quiet now. Perhaps he finally understands his place. The Varathi was a creature of living crystal, and its laugh sounded like breaking glass. Their planet is a death world, another delegate called out. Poison atmosphere, unstable weather, predators everywhere. It is a miracle they survived long enough to reach space at all. We should be grateful they make adequate servants. The word hit Laura like a physical blow. Servants. She remembered the human doctors who had worked 20-hour shifts during the Velen Plague. saving millions of alien lives. She remembered the human engineers who had died repairing the Arcturus station's reactor, preventing a disaster that would have killed billions. She remembered the human soldiers who had held the line at the frontier wars, buying time for species who now laughed at their sacrifice. Servants. Shaw still did not move. His eyes swept across the chamber, taking in every laughing face, every mocking gesture, every species that humanity had helped over 4 decades. Does the human have nothing to say? Zorvan asked, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Perhaps he has finally learned respect for his betters. I have learned many things today, Shaw said quietly. The laughter died down slightly. Something in his tone made even Zorvan pause. I have learned exactly how the Galactic Compact views humanity, Shaw continued. I have learned what our 40 years of service, sacrifice, and partnership have earned us in your eyes. He picked up his tablet from the podium. This ceremony is concluded, he said. Earth will be in contact. He turned and walked away from the podium. Lavra hurried to follow him, her heart pounding. Behind them, the laughter resumed, mixed with confused murmurs. Some delegates called after Shaw, demanding he return. Others simply found his departure amusing. In the corridor outside the Great Hall, Shaw walked in silence. His footsteps echoed against the polished floor. Lavra stayed beside him, afraid to speak. They reached the Earth delegation's quarters. Shaw entered and moved to the communication terminal. He stood there for a long moment, his back to Lavra. Sir, she finally said. What do we do now? Shaw activated the terminal. A direct line to Earth Command. We do what humans have always done when we are treated as less than we are, he said. His voice was calm, but there was something beneath it now. Something cold. We remind them of our worth. The connection established. A face appeared on the screen. Ambassador Shaw, the voice said. We watched the broadcast. All of Earth watched. Good, Shaw replied. Then you understand what I am about to ask. He paused, and when he spoke again, his words carried the weight of 40 years of service, sacrifice, and now, insult. They've made their choice. Now we make ours. Contact President Cole. Tell him it is time for Earth to remember who we are. Lavra watched her ambassador, and for the first time in her career, she felt something she had never expected. She felt sorry for the galaxy. The broadcast from Volantis Prime reached Earth in minutes. Within hours, every human in the solar system had seen it. Within a day, every human colony across 30 star systems had watched their ambassador stand in silence while the galaxy laughed at their species. President Marcus Cole sat alone in his office in Geneva. The lights were dim. The screen on his desk showed the moment frozen in time. Daniel Shaw at the podium. Zorvan's mandibles open in mockery. Hundreds of alien delegates laughing at the very idea that humanity mattered. Cole was 60 years old. He had been a soldier before he was a politician. He had fought in the border conflicts and lost friends to enemies who later became allies. He believed in patience. He believed in building bridges. But even bridges had limits. His aide knocked on the door. Sir, the United Council is assembled. They are waiting for you. Cole stood up. He straightened his jacket and walked to the door. Before he opened it, he paused. How are the people taking it? He asked. Angry, sir. Very angry. The protests just started an hour after the broadcast. They are peaceful so far, but the mood is... The aide searched for the right word. Cold. Cole nodded. Cold was worse than angry. Angry burned out quickly. Cold lasted. The United Council chamber held representatives from every nation on Earth and every human colony beyond it. 300 men and women who spoke for 12 billion people. They rose when Cole entered, and they did not sit until he reached the central podium. You have all seen what happened, Cole began. He did not waste time with greetings. For 40 years, we have given the galaxy our best. Our workers, our doctors, our soldiers, our scientists. We asked for nothing but respect and fair treatment. Today, we learned what that means to our so-called partners. Murmurs filled the chamber. I have spoken with Ambassador Shaw. I have reviewed our legal options. And I have made a decision that I now bring before this council. He placed his hands flat on the podium. Article 7 of our Constitution allows for immediate withdrawal from all external agreements when the dignity and sovereignty of humanity is threatened. I am invoking Article 7. I am asking this council to approve the termination of every treaty, compact, and agreement that binds us to the Galactic Compact. Silence. Then, slowly, voices began to rise. Every treaty? Someone asked. That includes defense agreements, trade routes, medical exchanges. We have hundreds of thousands of people working across the galaxy. We bring them home, Cole said simply. All of them. That will cause chaos, another representative said. The systems that depend on human workers, human technology, human support, will learn to survive without us, Cole finished. Just as they clearly believe they can. Admiral Carla Jensen stood from her seat. She was the commander of Earth's deep space fleet, a woman who had spent her life among the stars. Mr. President, I support this action, but I want to be clear about what we are doing. This is not a bluff. If we withdraw, we must be prepared to stay withdrawn. We cannot blink. I know, Cole said. That is why I am asking for a unanimous vote. Every nation, every colony. If even one voice dissents, we will find another path. But if we do this, we do it together. The vote took 6 hours. Representatives argued. Some pleaded for patience. Others demanded immediate action. But in the end, when the final count came, not a single vote stood against withdrawal. Humanity had spoken at midnight Earth Standard Time. A message was transmitted to every species in the Galactic Compact. It was short, it was polite, and it was absolute. Effective immediately, the Earth Federation withdraws from all existing treaties, agreements, and accords with the Galactic Compact and its member species. All human personnel, assets, and resources will be recalled to human-controlled space. We thank you for 40 years of partnership and wish you well in your future endeavors. The message reached Volantis Prime during what the aliens called their morning cycle. At first, the reactions were amused. Zorvan himself read the message and clicked his mandibles in what passed for a chuckle among his species. The humans are throwing a tantrum, he told his aides. They will calm down in a few days. They need us far more than we need them. Similar reactions echoed across the galaxy. The Vorathi Collective sent a mocking response. The Hegemony Council did not bother to respond at all. A few smaller species sent concerned inquiries, but they were mostly ignored. No one took it seriously. That changed within 48 hours. Kevin Price was the director of the Human Logistics Network. From his office on Earth, he coordinated supply chains that stretched across 30 star systems. Human-run shipping routes. Human-maintained communication relays. Human-operated fuel depots that kept galactic trade moving. When the withdrawal order came, he did not hesitate. Shut it down, he told his team. All of it. Every depot, every relay, every shipping contract. Our people come home. Sir, one of his officers said, some of these systems have no backup. If we pull out, their entire supply chain collapses. Price looked at her. Did they think about that when they called us servants? The officer had no answer. Across the galaxy, human workers began to leave. Not in a panic, but in an organized, efficient withdrawal that surprised everyone watching. Engineers packed their tools. Doctors finished their current patients and transferred records to local staff. Soldiers handed over their posts to Allied forces and boarded. Transport ships heading for human space. Admiral Jensen coordinated the recall personally. 400,000 humans scattered across hundreds of worlds, and every single one of them needed safe passage home. "We leave no one behind," she ordered her fleet captains. "Not one person. If any species tries to stop the evacuation, you have authority to respond. But do not fire first. We are not starting a war. We are ending a partnership." The transports began arriving at human colonies within days. Families reunited. Workers who had spent years on alien worlds stepped onto human soil and breathed. Human air. And the galaxy began to notice. On the hegemony's primary agricultural world, human irrigation specialists had maintained the water systems for 3 decades. When they left, no one knew how to operate the equipment. Within a week, the first crops began to fail. At the largest medical station in compact space, 60% of the doctors had been human. Surgeries were canceled. Patients were transferred. Some died waiting for care that never came. Trade convoys that had traveled safely under human escort suddenly found themselves alone in space. Pirate attacks tripled in the first week. And still, the laughter continued. Surely, the aliens told themselves, this was temporary. Surely, humanity would come crawling back. They were wrong. On Earth, President Cole addressed the people one final time. "We did not want this," he said. "We wanted partnership. We wanted respect. We were denied both. So now, we will stand alone. We will build our own future. And when the galaxy is ready to treat us as equals, we will be here." He paused, and his eyes hardened. "But we will never again beg for a seat at a table that mocks us. Never again." Across human space, 12 billion people watched. And for the first time in 40 years, they felt something they had almost forgotten. Pride. 7 days after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Compact, the first real panic began. Ryan Torres had worked as an agricultural engineer on Valori 6 for 8 years. The planet was known as the breadbasket of the hegemony, producing enough food to feed 50 worlds. Its soil was rich, its climate was perfect, and its water systems were the most advanced in the sector. Ryan had helped build those water systems. He had designed the pumps, programmed the distribution networks, and trained the local workers to handle basic maintenance. For 8 years, everything had worked perfectly. Now he stood at the edge of a dying field, watching the last transport ship load his equipment. A Valori official hurried toward him. The creature was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms that waved frantically as it approached. "You cannot leave," the official said. "The systems are failing. The crops are dying. You must stay and fix them." Ryan looked at the alien. He remembered this same official laughing at the broadcast from Volantis Prime. He remembered the jokes about human servants. "I am sorry," Ryan said. His voice was calm, but there was no warmth in it. "My government has recalled all citizens. I have to go home. But the water systems, I left full documentation in the control center. Everything you need to operate them is there." Ryan picked up his bag. "Your engineers should be able to figure it out." The official's forearms dropped to its sides. "Our engineers do not understand human technology. We never needed to learn. You were always here." Ryan paused at the transport's ramp. He turned back one last time. "Then maybe you should have treated us better," he said. He boarded the ship. The ramp closed, and Valori 6 began its slow descent into famine. 300 light-years away, Neko Hart was completing her final shift at Hegemony Medical Station 12. She had been a surgeon there for 6 years, performing operations that saved thousands of alien lives. Her hands had worked inside bodies that breathed different atmospheres, pumped different fluids, and healed in ways human medicine was still learning to understand. Today, she signed her last patient discharge form and removed her credentials from the hospital system. The station administrator intercepted her in the corridor. He was a Desic, the same insectoid species as Zorvan, though smaller and younger. His compound eyes reflected confusion rather than contempt. "Dr. Hart," he said, "please, we have over 200 patients scheduled for surgery this week. Without you and the other human doctors, we cannot possibly—" "I know," Nicole said. She felt tired. Not physically, but somewhere deeper. "I did not want to leave. I loved this work. I loved helping people, regardless of what species they were." "Then stay. We need you." Nicole stopped walking. She faced the administrator directly. 6 days ago, I watched your High Arbiter call my people servants. I watched delegates laugh at everything humanity has done. Not one person in that chamber defended us. Not one. The administrator lowered his head. I was not there. I did not laugh. But you did not speak either, Nicole said. None of you did. And now you expect us to stay? To keep serving a galaxy that thinks we are worth nothing? She walked past him toward the docking bay. Wait, the administrator called after her. What about our patients? What about the beings who will die without care? Nicole did not turn around. You should have thought about that before you decided we did not matter. The doors closed behind her. And Hegemony Medical Station 12 lost its best surgeon. On Volantis Prime, Desic, the bureaucrat, sat in Zorvan's outer office, waiting for an audience he dreaded. In his hands, he held a report that would change everything. When the doors finally opened, he walked into the High Arbiter's chamber with steps that felt heavier than they should. Zorvan stood at the window, looking out at the stars. What is it now, Desic? More complaints from the frontier worlds? Worse, High Arbiter. Desic placed the report on Zorvan's desk. Much worse. Zorvan turned. He picked up the report and began to read. As his compound eyes moved across the data, his posture slowly changed. The casual contempt faded. Something else took its place. This cannot be accurate, he said. I verified it 3 times, High Arbiter. The numbers are correct. The report was simple but devastating. In 40 years of partnership, humanity had quietly become essential to galactic civilization. Not because humans were special, not because they were superior, simply because they were willing to do the work that needed doing. 34% of all interspecies logistics operations were run by humans, or depended on human-maintained infrastructure. 28% of medical facilities in compact space employed human doctors, nurses, or technicians. 41% of frontier defense was coordinated through human command structures. And all of it was now gone. The Valori agricultural worlds are reporting crop failures, Desic continued. Medical stations across 3 sectors are operating at reduced capacity. Trade convoys are being attacked by pirates who know human escorts are no longer protecting them. Communication relays are going offline because no one remembers how to repair them. Zorvan set the report down. Exaggeration, panic. These problems will resolve themselves in time. With respect, High Arbiter, they are getting worse. Every day, more systems fail. Every day, more species send requests for human workers to return. Desic paused. Every day, Earth politely declines. Then we will demand they return. On what grounds? We mocked them. We called them servants. We have no leverage. Zorvan's mandibles clicked in frustration. They are one species among hundreds. They cannot possibly be this important. They are not important, Desic said quietly. That is what we always told ourselves. That is what we told them. But while we were busy looking down on humanity, They were busy holding our civilization together. The High Arbiter stood in silence. Outside his window, the stars continued to shine. But somewhere in that vast darkness, the systems that kept those stars connected were beginning to fail. What do they want? Zorvan finally asked. What will it take for them to come back? Desik shook his head. They have not made demands. They have not threatened. They simply left. Everyone wants something. Perhaps. Desik moved toward the door. Or perhaps they have finally realized that they deserve better than we offered. And perhaps, High Arbiter, that is what frightens you most of all. He left Zorvan alone with his report and his thoughts, and across the galaxy, the collapse continued. Not with explosions or warfare, but with quiet failures. Systems that had worked for decades suddenly stopped. Supply lines that had seemed permanent simply vanished. A civilization that had mocked humanity's contributions was now learning, slowly and painfully, exactly how much those contributions had meant. The laughter had stopped. The fear was just beginning. 3 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, the galactic economy entered what historians would later call the Great Unraveling, on the frontier colony of New Montana. Nathan Brooks watched the distant stars from his farmhouse porch. He was 63 years old, a retired Marine who had served 30 years protecting worlds that did not want him. Now he grew wheat on a planet that most of the galaxy had never heard of. And he preferred it that way. His wife, Ellen, brought him coffee as the sun began to set over the eastern mountains. Raiders hit the Patterson farm last night, she said. Took half their harvest. Nathan nodded. He had heard. Everyone had heard. With human military forces withdrawn from frontier protection, opportunistic raiders and hostile species had sensed weakness. The attacks were small at first. A supply ship here, an isolated settlement there. But they were growing bolder. How many families have signed up for the militia? He asked. 47 so far. More every day. Nathan sipped his coffee. He had hoped to spend his retirement in peace. But peace, it seemed, required people willing to defend it. Then we start training tomorrow, he said. The next morning, he stood before a group of farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, and retired soldiers. None of them had asked for this. All of them understood what was at stake. The galaxy thinks humans cannot survive without them, Nathan said. They think we are too weak, too dependent, too small to stand alone. Today, we prove them wrong. He picked up a rifle that he had not held in 5 years. New Montana is our home. No one takes our home. The training began far from the frontier, on the station of Valantis Prime. High Arbiter Zorvan convened an emergency session of the Galactic Assembly. The great hall that had echoed with laughter 3 weeks ago was now filled with desperate voices. The food shortages are spreading, the Valori delegate reported. Without human agricultural support, we cannot feed our outer colonies. We are facing famine within 2 months. Our medical systems are overwhelmed, another delegate added. Human doctors handled 60% of our complex surgeries. We have lost thousands of patients already. Pirates have seized control of 3 shipping lanes, a military commander announced. Without human escort ships, we cannot guarantee safe passage for trade convoys. Zorvan listened to complaint after complaint. Each one added to the weight pressing down on his shoulders. Each one reminded him of the laughter that had filled this same hall not long ago. Enough, he finally said. We must bring the humans back. We will demand their return to treaty obligations. A murmur spread through the assembly. How do you propose we do that? The Vorathi delegate asked. We cannot force them. Their fleet is small but capable. A war would cost us more than we can afford. We do not need force, Zorvan said. We remind them of their obligations. We remind them that they signed treaties. We remind them that civilization requires cooperation. He activated the communication system. A moment later, Ambassador Shaw's face appeared on the main screen. He looked calm, rested, almost peaceful. "Ambassador," Zovan began, "the Galactic Assembly requests that Earth immediately restore its treaty commitments. The stability of galactic civilization depends on no." The single word cut through the chamber like a blade. Zorvan's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Excuse me?" "I said no, High Arbiter." Shaw's voice was polite but firm. "Earth is withdrawn from all treaties. We have no obligations to restore. You cannot simply abandon your responsibilities." "We did not abandon anything. We ended a partnership that was not working. You made it very clear that our contributions were not valued. We accepted your judgment. Be reasonable, Ambassador. Millions of lives are at stake." Shaw leaned forward slightly. His eyes, broadcast across the great hall, held no anger, only a quiet, unshakable resolve. "I stood in that very hall and offered humanity's continued partnership. I was interrupted. I was mocked. I was called a servant." He paused. "You do not get to mock us one day and demand our help the next. That is not how partnership works." The connection ended. Zorvan stood frozen. The assembly hall erupted in arguments, accusations, and panic. But the High Arbiter heard none of it. For the first time in his long life, he had encountered something he did not know how to defeat: human dignity. While the great powers argued, a smaller ship approached Earth quietly. Ambassador Yanara of the Selthari had come alone, without escort or announcement. Her species had been silent during the mockery at Volantis Prime. They had not laughed, but they had not spoken either. She requested a private meeting with President Cole. To her surprise, he agreed. They met in a small garden outside the presidential residence in Geneva. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold that reminded Yanara of her own homeworld. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. President," she said. Her voice was soft, musical, translated through a small device at her throat. "You came a long way, Ambassador." I was curious why. Yanara lowered her head in what was, for her species, a gesture of deep respect. "I came to apologize. On behalf of the Selthari, and on behalf of myself. We should have spoken when your ambassador was humiliated. We should have defended you. We did not, and I'm ashamed." Cole studied her for a long moment. "Why did you stay silent?" "Fear," she admitted. "The hegemony controls trade routes essential to our survival. We were afraid that defending humanity would make us targets. And now? Now I understand that our silence made us complicit. And I understand that a galaxy that mocks kindness does not deserve to survive unchanged." Cole turned and walked slowly along the garden path. Yanara followed. "What do you want from us, Ambassador?" "Not a return to the old treaties. We know that will not happen. We want something different. A private alliance between our peoples. Mutual support. Fair trade. Respect." Cole stopped at a bench overlooking a small pond. He sat down and gestured for Yanara to join him. "You understand that any alliance with Earth will anger the hegemony. Yes, you understand that we will not pretend the insult never happened. That our return to galactic cooperation, if it comes at all, will be on our terms." "I understand. And I accept." Cole nodded slowly. "Then we can talk." As night fell over Geneva, a new relationship began to form. Not between humanity and the galaxy, but between humanity and a single species that had found the courage to do what was right. On Volantis Prime, Zorvan received a report that the Selthari ambassador had been seen on Earth. He dismissed it as desperation from a minor species. He sent a personal message to Ambassador Shaw, asking what it would take for humanity to return. Shaw's response arrived the next morning. It contained only one line. "That depends entirely on whether the galaxy has learned anything." Zorvan read the message a dozen times. For the first time, he began to wonder if the lesson being taught was not for humanity, thought it was for him. 2 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Assembly gathered once more. But this time, the atmosphere was nothing like before. The great hall of Valantis Prime, once filled with laughter and contempt, now held only silence and shame. Delegates who had mocked humanity's contributions now sat quietly, their world suffering from shortages, system failures, and growing chaos. The crystal pillars still rose toward the stars, but the confidence that had once filled this space was gone. High Arbiter Zorvan stood at the central podium. His posture was different now. The arrogance had faded. In its place was something that looked almost like humility. "I have called this Reconciliation Summit," he announced, "to address the crisis facing our civilization, and to welcome a delegation from Earth." The doors at the far end of the hall opened. Ambassador Daniel Shaw walked in first, his gray hair and steady gaze unchanged from the day he'd been humiliated in this very room. Behind him came Admiral Carly Jensen in her crisp uniform and Director Kevin Price, who had dismantled the human logistics network with quiet efficiency. They walked to the Earth delegation's platform without speaking. 200 species watched them in silence. Shaw looked around the chamber. He took his time, meeting the eyes of delegates who had laughed at him, who had called his people servants, who had thought humanity was nothing more than cheap labor. Then he spoke. 63 days ago, I stood where you stand now, High Arbiter. I came to renew 40 years of partnership. I was interrupted. I was mocked. I was told that humanity's contributions meant nothing. His voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the vast hall. Today, I return. Not because we need you. We have learned to stand alone. Not because we fear you. Our frontier colonies have defended themselves against raiders your fleets ignored for years. Not because we regret our decision. We do not. He paused. I return because despite everything, humanity still believes in cooperation. We still believe that different species can work together for the common good. But we will not return to what was. That chapter is closed forever. Zorvan stepped forward. His movements were slow, deliberate. When he spoke, his voice held none of its former contempt. Ambassador Shaw, on behalf of the Hegemony Council and the Galactic Assembly, I offer a formal apology for the treatment you received. The words spoken in this chamber were wrong. The laughter was wrong. We were wrong. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Many delegates had never heard Zorvan apologize for anything. Humanity's contributions were not just valuable, Zorvan continued. They were essential. We did not see this because we did not want to see it. We looked at your short lifespans and saw weakness. We looked at your young civilization and saw primitives. We were blind. He lowered his massive head. I ask what Earth requires to restore our partnership. Shaw nodded to Admiral Jensen. She stepped forward with a document that had been prepared over weeks of careful negotiation. Earth's terms are as follows, Jensen announced. First, full recognition of humanity as equal partners in galactic civilization. No more talk of servants. No more mockery. No more dismissal. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Second, a permanent seat for humanity on the High Council, with full voting rights on all matters affecting galactic policy. More murmurs. The High Council had been exclusive to the oldest and most powerful species for millennia. Third, reparations for the insult delivered at the Treaty Summit. Not in resources or credits, but in public acknowledgement. Every species that participated in the mockery will issue formal statements recognizing humanity's contributions to galactic civilization. Director Price stepped forward to deliver the final terms. Fourth, all future treaties will be restructured to acknowledge mutual dependence. No species will be treated as lesser. No species will be treated as servants. Cooperation will be based on respect, or it will not exist at all. The chamber was silent. Zorvan looked around at the assembled delegates. Many were unhappy. Some were angry. But none of them could deny the truth that had been revealed over the past 2 months. "These terms are acceptable," Zorvan said. "I call for a vote." The vote took only minutes. The result was overwhelming. Only a handful of species voted against Earth's terms, and their objections were noted and ignored. Humanity had returned. But everything had changed. After the formal session ended, Shaw stood alone on a balcony overlooking the stars. Lavra Mitchell found him there, just as she had found him 2 months ago after the humiliation. "It worked," she said. "Everything we hoped for. Full equality. A council seat. Respect." Shaw nodded slowly. "It worked. You do not seem happy." He turned to face her. His eyes were tired but peaceful. "I am not unhappy. But I am also not naive. Some of them will change. They will learn from this and become better partners. Others will simply wait until they think we are weak again, and the cycle will repeat. Then what was the point?" Shaw looked back at the stars. The point was to teach them that we are not servants. The point was to teach ourselves that we do not need their approval to survive. The point was to show the galaxy that kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. He smiled slightly. "We will help those who ask with respect. We will ignore those who demand with arrogance. And if they ever forget again what humanity is worth, we will remind them. As many times as necessary." Lavra stood beside him in silence. Behind them, the sounds of the assembly faded. Ahead of them, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere among those stars, the first human supply ships were already preparing to launch. Doctors would return to hospitals. Engineers would repair systems. Soldiers would protect borders. Humanity would do what it had always done. But this time, they would do it as equals. Shaw reached into his pocket and pulled out a small Earth flag pin. He had worn it the day he was humiliated. He had kept it close ever since. He handed it to Lara. "Give this to the Selthari ambassador," he said. "Tell her it is a gift from Earth. Tell her we remember who stood with us when it mattered." Lavra took the pin carefully. "And the others?" "The ones who laughed. They will have to earn their second chance." Shaw turned toward the door. "Humanity does not forget, but we do forgive those willing to grow." He walked back into the assembly hall, ready to begin the long work of building something new behind him. The stars of a changed galaxy waited for whatever would come next, on Earth. President Cole watched the broadcast of the summit's conclusion. When it ended, he turned off the screen and sat in silence. His aide approached. "Sir, the people are celebrating. They want you to make a statement." Cole stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could hear the sounds of joy, music, cheering, the release of 2 months of tension and uncertainty. "Tell them this," he said quietly. "Today, we proved that humanity's worth is not measured by how others see us. It is measured by how we see ourselves. We are not servants. We are not lesser. We are human." He paused. "And that is enough. That has always been enough." The celebration continued through the night. And across the galaxy, for the first time in history, the word human was spoken not with mockery, but with respect. Some lessons, it seemed, had finally been learned.